One of the things we've really focused on here is what I'm now calling, and what Maajid Nawaz has coined as, the regressive left. That there are people, I come from the progressive world, that's where I've been for these last couple of years, and it's only really in the last 6 months that I've had my own awakening, that I realized it was my guys, it's my guys on the left that are trying to silence people like you and silence people like Sam Harris and Maajid and all of this. And I've had Sam and I've had Maajid on, and I include you in that. And I think partially, I think that Sam said that or Maajid said that part of his awakening was after a debate that he had with you. What do you make of this coming from the left? Because the left is supposed to debate ideas, right? We're supposed to be about ideas, free thought, and yet it's those very people who are trying to silence you. I'm amazed by this.
I think what I've seen, and I could be wrong, is that what the left does is they put all the emphasis on justice, the concept of justice. And maybe what the right, rather classical liberals, because those are the people I identify with, and in the US they're called conservatives, sometimes libertarians. But what classical liberals do is they put the emphasis on freedom. And I was exposed to these concepts between, say, 1995, when I go to the University of Leiden, until 2000, and then 2001, something happens that makes me intent on testing these ideas. And what I have discovered, like many people before me, and I think you will as you grow, is that there is no justice without freedom. And so if you accept, and that is freedom from coercion, freedom from being forced into doing something you don't want to do, or using the tools of state to make individuals do something they don't want to do, or the government failing at having one individual take the freedom of the other individuals. But if you have no freedom, then you will have no justice.
Yeah, so I'm with you on that.
So justice is secondary.
Right, so what do you make of the tactics that they use? Because there's been so much, we've talked about it so much, but so much lying and smearing about people's views, including your own. Even when I've just tweeted that I'm having you on the show, fortunately, because we've built something good here, I think, 80% of it was positive, but a lot of people, she's racist. I mean, they're telling me that you are racist. So what do you make of the tactics that they're using? Because I do think they're doing something lofty. They think they're helping the downtrodden or something like that. When in actuality, they're strengthening the very people that they should, by definition, be against.
And I think that is because if you put the emphasis on justice, you are by definition going to start talking about groups and collectives. Groups and collectives are abstract. You belong to a group for a short period of time. You're a member of whatever you are, a collective you are a member of for a certain amount of time. But really, all the time, you are an individual. So the basic arguments I used to have with the left, and I started out in the Netherlands, was, okay, so you want to protect the culture and the religion of this collective, and this collective is saying, if we don't practice our religion the way we used to back at home, we are just not happy, we feel deprived, we feel persecuted, we don't feel at home, and that has all kinds of a psychological effect on the entire group. But what about the individual? What about the individual girl who's removed from school? Right. What about the individual girl who's forced into a marriage where she's consistently raped? She can't reach out to her parents because they put her in that situation. Her husband thinks he has a right. What about that individual right? What about the individual right to say, I don't want to do this, I want to do something else, and you're forcing this individual into doing that? And these constitutions in liberal countries is all about recognizing that individual freedom and aspiring to protect it as much as possible. And so what I tell my left-wing friends, and I have a lot of them because a lot of them have good intentions and they're progressive and they want to stand up for the poor, the downtrodden.
I feel the same way, yeah.
Is just to take them back to that unit that they can empathize with. If you're gay and you're on the left, and on the one hand, you belong to a movement, you're fighting for the right in America to marry. But on the other hand, you're also fighting for the right of some minority collective to do whatever they want to the individual members, shouldn't you be thinking about the plight of the individual members, those who can't voice their wishes, and those who, if they do, have to deal with consequences, so die? And I'm not talking about death and threats. I'm talking about your father looking you in the eye and telling you're no longer my daughter, I disown you. You can't show yourself up in the mosque. You are not invited to, so you're shunned.
Yeah.
And think of the psychological impact of that on the individual who chooses to have a lifestyle that is not in sync with a 7th century lifestyle.
Right, and that lifestyle, whether they're gay or just a woman, is what the progressives should always be fighting for, and that's the ultimate irony in this.
That's the ultimate irony. It is women that I mean, this is my background. I wanted to be free to determine my own destiny. I didn't want to marry the man I was forced to marry. I wanted to find my own mate in life. I wanted to work and I wanted to finish my education, and I was told that's going to bring shame on us. Now, with the emphasis on us, that is the group, the collective. So it's always you, the individual, the unit, and you're constantly being told, you're so selfish, you're bringing down the whole family, the whole clan, the whole group. And here's the irony, I think. It used to be the left that would take up the defense of the weak. Mm-hmm. And now, unfortunately, we live in a time when it is the left that has decided to define weak units as groups, not individuals.
So what can we do? So what can we do? People in the public sphere with a voice that care about people on the left, not even people on the left, that care about liberal values.
Yeah.
What can we do? Because when I see the tactics and the way they treat you guys,
yeah.
I've asked this to Sam and Majid. I said, there must be this piece of you that wants to get out, and that's why I asked you too. And I partly think that the reason that they do it is they want to do enough damage to you guys and people like you so that everyone else, it's not about you. You know what I mean? Like, they'll get rid of you. You'll just say, okay, I can't do this anymore. And it's the chilling effect for everyone beneath you. So how do we fight this?
It's about the utopia. I think what we have to do is we have to expose the fact that they are after a utopia. This whole justice thing, life would be wonderful if we had Sharia law, all of us. So just uncover their message. Really, would we? And I think if you are a liberal, you have to revisit the basic principles of liberalism. And it was about individuals. That is how the aristocracy was put in its place back then, when there was, I have all of these rights because I happen to belong to this family, and you're all serfs, and you serve us as aristocrats because you happen to belong to that collective. It wasn't about that. It is about the individual freedom. When it was about, fighting slavery, you had to recognize the other person who was the slave as a fellow human being and as an individual. Fighting for women's rights, you had to recognize women as fellow individual human beings. And the whole concept of human rights is based on the individual and the freedom of the individual. And we know that we are social animals, and as social animals and as individuals within our families and within our communities, within our workplace, we have to negotiate that sweet spot, that space where you can say, I can be me, and this is how I can serve my community, and this is how my community can serve me. But all of that is not going to work if individual liberty is compromised. And unfortunately, the people who have inherited these systems, America, Europeans, other free countries, they're compromising that because they think it's so, there's this collective or that collective, and this story, that narrative. It is.
They think it's a lofty goal somehow, but do you sense that the tide is turning? I feel like the social justice warrior thing and this whole movement, I feel like it's been gaining strength for the last 5 years. But I do think partly because of Charlie Hebdo and sort of the general absurdity of so much of it online, and Brandeis University saying that they're not going to give you an honorary doctorate. I mean, the height of absurdity to not give you an honorary doctorate after they said they would do it, that I do sense that the tide is turning. Am I just being optimistic there, or do you feel that?
I think what we are seeing is more and more confrontations that really pronounce this this struggle. I think one of them is Israel versus the Arab Muslim world. Here is a liberal country. It's a democracy, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
And we find outsiders telling them what they can and can't do. Who know, in the United States of America, if we had people throwing rockets at us,
right,
knifing us, if you had the leadership of the opposition saying, take a knife, take a car, take whatever weapon you can, go after them, we would find it completely unacceptable and deal with it appropriately. But when Israel does it, we demonize and vilify Israel.
So in a weird way,
so that's one example.
Yeah.
And then we have more examples. And you've mentioned Majid and myself and all the other, what I don't know what is the right term to use, Muslim reformers, Muslim modifiers, Muslim heretics. I think that is the right word. Heretic is you're on the inside, you start to ask questions, and then you're vilified and shunned by this group because they don't want to change or because they have an agenda for Sharia and the caliphate and jihad. And you stand up to that, and then they go after you. So we're seeing so many of these confrontations on so many different levels. And I think the mistake is that, if you're a socialist in the United States, you're Bernie Sanders and you're running for president, and you're Donald Trump and you're running for president, you can say the most ridiculous things in the world.
Right.
Nobody's going to kill you. And nobody expects you to be killed. And if you're attacked, if any violence against these two right now, these two extremes, the American population is going to meet that with such rejection, and it's going to be reviled. And we have to teach the rest of the world that it is possible to disagree and to disagree radically, but not use violence unless violence is used.
So that's an interesting thought, because we always think, or I think, that our system is so broken here. Our political system is so broken, and we can't get things done properly, and our discourse is so silly, and cable news. But actually, the way you just said that look, you have these two people who couldn't be further from each other, Trump and Sanders, the ultimate capitalist, the ultimate socialist. Yeah. And yet there is no threat. There's no credible threat to their lives, right? So that does show that we have something pretty good about our Western society. I know it's not cool to say that, but that's the truth, right?
That's the truth, and it goes even more than that. We also expect them to shake hands on stage. We expect them to be civil to one another, and they can disagree as much as they like. But why is the general public, say the establishment Republicans, why are they angry with Donald Trump? I don't think it's because of his ideas. Sometimes it's because of the way he speaks. That goes a little too far. It gets too close to, uncivilized behavior, violent behavior. Let's not do that. There is a culture here where, yes, people are violent. There are a lot of guns out there, and people use these guns. But mainstream Americans expect mainstream Americans to behave in a certain way. And it's not a culture that says, let's not disagree. We know we all disagree.
Yeah.
You say the system is broken. No, it's the human being that's fragile. We disagree. What we have is a system where you can have these disagreements and these discussions, and you can change your mind, or you can go as radical as you please, but you're not expected to use violence, and the government is there to protect you. And with people putting question marks on the First Amendment, there are two different things. There's one part of it is, we can disagree with one another as much as we like, but there's a system here, there's an infrastructure that allows us to disagree with one another without the use of violence. If you start putting question marks on the First Amendment, in other words, defamation laws, there are some religions or there are some icons that you may or may not criticize, then you are really eroding the system. You're bringing down the system.
Yeah.
And this system is superior to any other system I've ever seen, any other system in history. So our job is, and here's where people like you and me and Sam and Majid are saying, we've got to be careful that the government does not enact laws where some ideas cannot be criticized, and religion is just an idea. It may be to you everything, but to me it's just an idea, and all ideas can be criticized, it makes your idea only stronger.
Right.
But we must not challenge we mustn't erode the system that makes that possible. So I'm a First Amendment fundamentalist, if you want to put it that way.
If you're going to be a fundamentalist of some kind, I suppose that's the one to be.